All right, so here we are, week 8 of our series that we've been calling Hashtag Life Goals. And so I don't know about you, but I'm kind of a little bit sad that we're ending this series today because it's been a lot of fun to look at each of these different characters each week throughout the Bible and try to pick out from their stories how we can maybe do a little different, do a little better in our lives, set our example after them. And if you don't get the whole hashtag thing, there's plenty of kids in the room today. They'll explain it to you. They understand it, I'm sure. But yeah, so today I want to start us out by looking at a verse that we've looked at a few times. It's kind of our theme verse, although I haven't really focused a lot on it. But today I think there's something in there that I want to pick out. So we're going to look at Hebrews chapter 12 and verse 1. And if you have your outline in the worship guide, you can pull that out and follow along with us today. But Hebrews chapter 12, verse 1, it says, "Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses," so there's people in heaven that are looking down and they're watching us. They're paying attention to what we're doing. "Since we're surrounded by them, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles. And let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us." Let us run this race that we're on, that's been marked out for us. It's been planned for us. And so we've been looking at this life that we've been given, this race that we're on, and we're all kind of running this race, and there's people in heaven that are cheering us on. And you know, through their life, because they finished and they finished well, we're able to look at their life and say, hey, that's something I want to pattern my own life after. And you know, this one today, as I've already said, is an important topic, I'm sure, for so many of us, because if we're being honest with each other, there are days where we just want to throw in the towel. There are days where we just don't feel like running anymore. There are days where we just want to give up. We don't want to run another lap. And so we haven't looked at verse 2 yet, but I want to look at that with you today because I think we find in there instruction for us, especially when we find ourselves ready to throw in the towel. And so that was Hebrews 12:1. Here's verses 2 and 3. It says, "Keep your eyes on Jesus, who both began and finished this race that we're in." Now I want to pause there for just a second because I'm sure that some of you would say, well, yeah, but he was God, so it was easy for him. Well, yes and no. Yes and no. It certainly wasn't easy for Jesus. The Bible would tell us, in fact, that every sin, every temptation, every trial that we face, that he faced it, and he did not sin. He faced all of those things. In fact, it also tells us that we have a high priest, Jesus. A high priest, Jesus, who's able to sympathize with how hard life can be. He gets it. He understands it. He's been through it. He's not sitting up there, as so many of us think, with condemnation towards us. He's not sitting up in heaven looking down at us saying, can't you just get your act together? I can't believe you're praying that prayer again. Can't you just figure it out? No, he understands. He gets it. He's able to sympathize with us where we're at. He gets it. And so then the verse continues. And this is what I want us to focus on. It says, study how he did it. Study how he did it. Why? Well, because he never lost sight of where he was headed. That exhilarating finish in and with God. He could put up with anything along the way. Cross, shame, whatever. And now he's there in the place of honor, right alongside God. It says in some translations, on the right hand of God. And when you find yourselves flagging in your faith, when you find that you can't go on another day, when you find that you're doubting more than you're believing, go over that story again. Go over that story again, item by item, it says. That long litany of his hostility that he plowed through. I love the way they put that. That he, Jesus, plowed through. And I think today that when we study the life of Jesus, if you weren't here for any of the other 7 weeks, this is all you need. Jesus himself provides for us the ultimate life goal, the ultimate example of how we should live. And here it tells us that we should study his life, item by item, again and again. Because when we study his life, there are lessons to be learned. There are ways to grow when we study his life. Because listen, there are days when we all want to quit. There are all days when we want to throw in the towel. Listen, I probably shouldn't tell you this. I know you probably need your pastor to have it all together. But there are days when I just want to throw in the towel. There are days when I just want to give up. There are days when I say to God, God, you got to find somebody else to do that because I just can't do it today. There are days like that for me too. There are times when Consuela and I are leading a married people event, and we've been fighting all week long. Those days happen to me too. When I just think, I can't. I just can't. Can anybody relate to just wanting to give up? Kids that are already back in school, can you relate it? Can you relate to the fact of wanting to give up already? I imagine that some of you can. And the truth is that we can't do life on our own. We just simply can't do it. It's not a formula for life to do it all on your own, as much as we want to try to do it. But that brings me to my big idea for today, and it's a simple one. I hope you all get it. It's to keep your eyes on Jesus. Now, kids in the room, every time I say the word Jesus, the name Jesus, I want you to sign the name Jesus. Who knows how to do the word Jesus in sign language? Do you know how to do it? So it's this, right? Am I doing it right? Yeah. So kids, practice doing this. You do it. So it's Jesus. That's it. That's how you do Jesus in sign language. So every time you hear me say the word Jesus, I want you to do that. Okay? It's your middle finger just to your palm on each hand. One time each hand. All right? So let's practice Jesus. All right, I saw about 3 kids doing it. Come on, kids. Here we go. Jesus. Excellent. So today, the big idea is to keep your eyes on Jesus. We're going to take a look at the most difficult time in Jesus' life. And we're going to look and see how he did it. On his worst day. Because I think that if we're going to draw an example out of anyone's life, especially Jesus' life, I think we got to look on his worst day. See how he did it on his very worst day. Because it's easy to do life well when everything's going good. It gets tough when things are tough. And so we're going to look at Jesus' worst day. And even on his worst day, the day that saw him going to the cross for punishment that we deserved, on that day, through all of the terrible things that he faced, he was still teaching us. He was still teaching us. He was still showing us a clear example of how we should live our lives. And while Jesus is on the cross, he makes 7 statements. I want to rehearse them with you today. 7 statements. You can't get them all in any one gospel. You've got to look at the harmony of the gospels, as they say in theology. You've got to look at the fact that all of the gospels tell the same story, just from different perspectives. And so if you look at all of the gospels, you can put together these 7 statements that Jesus says on the cross. 7 statements that I think will be instructive to us. It'll be encouraging to us. And they're a great example for all of us to consider, especially when we have days that we just want to give up and not do it anymore. And so, for many of us, it's a familiar story. Jesus on the cross. But Hebrews 12, it tells us to visit the life of Jesus again and again, item by item. And so that's what we're going to do today. Even as familiar as this story is to you, we are encouraged to revisit it again and again. And so it's my hope that you would take these 7 things and find a way to be reminded of them yourself over and over. Take the sermon outline perhaps. Take it home and put it on your fridge or put it somewhere where you'll see it when you're heading out to work and you know it's going to be a bad day. Put it in your car so you can pull it out and look at it when you're having a bad day. And I believe that if you'll apply even just 2 or 3 of these 7 things, that you'll notice a shift. You'll notice something different when you're having a bad day. And so here's Jesus' example to us. Here's the first thing that we see in the life of Jesus. It's this: it's to forgive everyone who's trying to ruin your life. Forgive everyone who's trying to ruin your life. I don't know about you, but I feel like there are just some people that they went to some sort of discovery seminar, and the result they got back was that they're really good at trying to ruin my life. Do you have people like that in your life? That like it just seems like they're gifted in trying to ruin my life. Like they have a sight on me, and they can push all the right buttons, they can do all the right things, and it just seems like that they are just really good at trying to ruin my life. I just look at them, man, they're good. Like they know exactly what to do. Sometimes it's surprisingly good. But they end up hurting us. They end up wounding us. And for those of you that are ready to quit, like you would say today, yeah, Pastor Tim, like I'm there. Like I know exactly what you're talking about. I bet if I were to survey you, I bet the majority of you would say, yeah, I'm ready to quit because of a relationship. Like there's a family member, there's a friend, there's a coworker, there's a spouse, there's a child. Like I'm ready to throw it in. I'm ready to give up. And those relationship issues, I would bet, would make up over 90% of the problem for those of you that say, I want to give up. Because relationships matter. But here we see Jesus on the cross being mocked, being beaten. And the very first thing that he says on his horrible bad day, on his worst day, the very first thing that Jesus says is found in Luke 23. Says, Father, forgive them, for they don't know what they're doing. The first thing that Jesus does is he forgives others. He forgives the very people that are doing the worst to him. He finds some capacity that so many of us need to tap into to forgive others. And I know some of you would say, Tim, that is so hard. Like that is so difficult. I just can't find myself ever forgiving that person. And I would just tell you, don't do it for them, do it for you. Don't forgive for them, forgive for you. Because the truth is that the race you're running, you cannot and will not continue running it if you have resentment in your heart. Unforgiveness makes it so easy to give up on life. Resentment makes it so easy to give up on life. And listen, I'm very aware that some of you, the person that comes to mind for you is a previous pastor. For some of you, I know it's a previous church. I know that the church can hurt people. I get that. But forgive not for them, but for you. It'll keep you running from your race, or running your race completely. It will keep you from that. But Jesus wants us to walk in forgiveness at all times. Think about it. It's in the Lord's Prayer. The very prayer that Jesus models for us, he puts forgiveness right in there as a daily model for us. Forgive those who have sinned against us. It's right there. And I want to pause for a minute and remind you, I've mentioned it a few times, but starting next week, next Sunday, August 6th, I'm going to begin a series called Teach Us to Pray. We'll do it for the 4 weeks of August. We're going to go deeper in our prayer life. And in fact, I'm asking everyone to start next Sunday on a journey of 21 days of prayer. We've got a calendar that'll give you something specific to pray for each day. There's a booklet back there that helps you journal and helps you have different prayer focuses. Pick one of those up on your way out. But next Sunday, we're going to do 21 days of prayer, and I'm going to be teaching about Teach Us to Pray. And part of that will be focusing on the Lord's Prayer because I think it's a great model. If we'll dig in and we'll go deeper in our prayer life. And Jesus knew the importance of forgiveness. It's right there. In fact, I love what it says in Matthew 6. It hurts a little bit, but I love it. It says, for if you forgive other people when they sin against you, your heavenly Father will also forgive you. Here's where it gets a little painful. If you do not forgive others their sins, then your Father will not forgive your sins. I don't know how much clearer it could be. Forgiveness isn't, let me be clear, forgiveness is not about saying that whatever the other person did was okay, because it's not. It's not about accepting them back into your life, because that's not what I'm saying. But forgiveness is Get this, forgiveness is about not letting it be on your record. Forgiveness is about not letting it be on your record. Don't let unforgiveness be something that sticks with you, because it can end up skewing and impacting so many other areas of your life, including relationships. Most importantly, your relationship with Jesus. We all know people that were hurt by other people, and it caused them to leave the church. It caused them to give up their faith in Jesus. And often it's stemmed from unforgiveness in their lives. Some of you, I am aware, you don't need these other 6 things I'm going to cover. Like, this one is enough for you. If I stop preaching right now, you would say, I've got it. That's it. That's what I need to do. And you'd walk out of here fine. Do it. Forgive others. It would put wind back into your sails. It would propel you to keep running on this race that's been marked out for you. So forgive others. Forgive others as Jesus has forgiven you. Here's number 2. Number 2, it's help others who are experiencing your same struggle. Help others who are experiencing your same struggle. If you want to live life to the fullest, help others who are experiencing the same struggle as you. Test this one. Test this one. You will see something amazing happen in your life when you do this. On your worst day, find somebody else that's having their worst day and find a way to serve them. Find a way to help them. It will amaze you what will happen. Watch what happens in your bad day when you choose to serve somebody else who's having a bad day. Because listen, I know your attitude of wanting to throw in the towel, it will completely change. Help someone in their struggle. Here's what Jesus did. Luke 23 says, one of the criminals who hung there hurled insults at him. If you remember the cross, there's criminals on either side of Jesus. And so the one is saying, aren't you the Christ? Save yourself and us. But the other criminal rebuked him, said, don't you fear God? Since you are under the same sentence, we are punished justly, he says, for we are getting what our deeds deserve. But this man, Jesus, this man has done nothing wrong. And then he turns to Jesus. Remember me, he says, when you come into your kingdom. And Jesus answered him, I tell you the truth, today you'll be with me in paradise. Jesus could have said to him, look, man, I got my own problems. I mean, I'm having a bad day here. And you're asking for something from me? He could have said, I got enough issues, but he didn't. It's the most amazing thing. He said, today, I've got you. Today, I'm going to take care of you. And it's a real life lesson for all of us. That's why as we approach the fall, as kids begin to go back to school, as we all kind of get into the normal grind of life, the non-summer swing of life, that's why I want you to consider inviting someone to the Journey Church. Especially those that you would say, you know what? They're at the point of giving up. They're at the point of throwing in the towel. But invite them. Because listen, it's not just for them. When you do that, it's for you too. And I desperately want that for you. I want you to experience that. I want you to be a part of life change from inviting somebody to be with you here. Because listen, I believe you've never been a part of dynamic Christianity until you've been a part of leading someone else to Christ. That's an important part of our faith. And until you're a part of that, there's something missing. But there's opportunity all around you, especially if you'll pray for God to open your eyes to it. I love what Isaiah says. It says in chapter 58, verse 10, you can study this later. And if you spend yourselves, I love that. If you spend yourselves in behalf of the hungry and satisfy the needs of the oppressed, then your light will rise in the darkness and your night will become like the noonday. Man, if we will just empty ourselves for others, then God does something in us to make our light shine bright, to make our worst day bright and full of hope. Help others. Help others. Help others. That's the second thing that Jesus shows us through his example. Here's the third. You can write this one down. Be sure you've taken care of those closest to you. Be sure you've taken care of those closest to you. When you're ready to give up, when you're having a bad day, be sure you've taken care of those that are closest to you. Now, why would Jesus teach us this lesson? Think about it for a minute. And kids, I want you to do this too. If you're elementary through high school, I want you to get this because I wish I had gotten this as a kid. Jesus teaches this because who is it that gets the brunt of our anger and frustration at the end of our day? It's our home. It's our family. It's people that are closest to us. We'll be nice to everybody else all day long at work, but man, when we come home, it's like boom, the fight ensues. We dump it. We dump it on our husband. We dump it on our wife. We dump it on our kids. We dump it on our parents. And we bottle it up. And then when we get home, we explode. And we treat those closest to us like they are not worth it. And that's not the way it should be. That's certainly not the example that Jesus shows us from the cross. It's very simple. John 19, Jesus says these words. He says, "Dear woman, here is your son." And then he looks at John and he says, "Here is your mother." And here we see in this moment John, a disciple of Jesus, the only disciple that physically followed Jesus to the cross. And he's standing there with Jesus' mother, Mary. And Jesus looks down from the cross and he immediately thinks, oh man, what's mom going to do? What is mom going to do? He easily could have taken it out on his mom. He easily could have just been so wrapped up in what he was going through that he didn't even think about mom. But he didn't. No, he didn't. He says to Mary, "Here is your new son." And John, "Here is your mom." He found a way in that moment, in his darkest day, to care for those that were closest to him. Rather than dumping on them, he chose to love them and to care for them. And listen, guys, we are the worst at this. Men, can I speak to you for a minute? We're the worst. In my experience, time and time again, through my own actions and through those that I've talked with, guys, we come home and we have the chip on our shoulder. We come home and we take it out on our wives. We take it out on our kids. We are the worst at this. We give the best to our boss all day long, but then we come home and we give the worst to our families. We give the best to the world and we give the worst to our kids. Guys, we need to do better. A mentor of mine once said that on his way home from work, he would pull in the driveway and he would pause before he went in the house and he would pray. And he would pray about the day. He would shake it off so that way when he walked in, he could be fully present for his family. That's good advice. That's what we all need to do. That's the third one. Here's the fourth. Here's the fourth one. Realize that until you get to heaven, there are just some things you will never understand. Until you get to heaven, there's just going to be some things you will never understand. Because listen, the truth is that when you're having a bad day, when things are going wrong, when things aren't going well for you, the first thing you do, the first thing I do, is I begin to get caught up in why. Why is this happening? Why do I deserve this? It's been going on too long enough. And you begin to ask why? Why God? And you know Jesus, he can relate. Jesus does that very thing from the cross. Matthew 27, he says, my God, why? Why have you forsaken me? Why? It's a question that we all get caught up in when things are going bad. Why? And you know, I don't know why Jesus asked why. I don't know if it was a real question of why, or if it was just simply that he was maybe modeling something for us. But regardless, he asks why, just like so many of us do when things aren't going our way. I have questions. I'm sure you have questions. My biggest question, the one that haunts me the most, the one that I ask why about over and over again, is why did my dad have to go at such a young age? Why did my dad have to leave at 60 years old, suddenly from a heart attack? Why? Why, God, did that have to happen? And lately, there's been a new why. There's been a new why that has creeped up in my life about my dad dying. And it's the question of, God, why didn't you give me the chance to at least say goodbye? Why didn't I have that opportunity at least? I can relate with asking why. And there's no answer for that right now. There's no answer. And on my best days, I choose to trust God even through the tough questions. I choose to trust Him anyway because I know that one day I'll get to heaven and it will all make sense. I will get there and I will say, God, you did know what you were doing. You did do the right thing. You did do it right. Because I know, and I want you all to know and to grab hold of the fact that God always does the right thing. God always does the right thing, so we need to trust Him at all times, even when we're asking why. Because the truth is if you get into the realm of the whys, it will destroy you. It will completely destroy you. But rather, if you'll say, God, I've got questions, but I know that you're good. I know that you've got this, and I'm satisfied with just not knowing right now. That's the place you want to be in for those bad days. That's the place that you want to go to every time. Because there's just some things you're just not going to know until you get to heaven. Here's the fifth. Here's number 5. Fill it in on your outline. Be human enough to acknowledge your need. Be human enough to acknowledge your need. It's interesting to me that the times when we need people the most are the times when we push people away the most. I'll say that again. It's interesting to me that the times when we need people the most are the times when we push them away the most. I don't want anybody to know what I'm going through. I don't want anybody to know that I've got problems. Here's what we see in Jesus' life, John chapter 19. Later, knowing that all was now completed and so that the scripture could be fulfilled, Jesus said, I am thirsty. I am thirsty. I have a need that I need somebody else to meet. A jar of wine vinegar was there. So they soaked a sponge, put the sponge on a stalk of the hyssop plant, and lifted it to Jesus' lips. This one singular moment reminds us again that none of us, nobody in this room today is so self-sufficient that we don't need others to help us. None of us. None of us are that self-sufficient. Even Jesus on the cross, He gives us permission in that moment to be honest and to ask for help. Isn't that great? He gives us permission to ask for help from others. Because we all need others. We all need others to help us through our tough times. I need help. You need help. We all need help. Listen, I have people in my life that are regularly checking in on me. I have people in my world that they send me a text message, they call me, and they say, how are you doing? These people know how difficult it is to transition into a new city, into a new church, into a new dynamic of life. And so they know they have permission to check in on me. And you need to have those people too. You need to have people that can come to you and say, how are you doing? You can say, terrible. How are you? You can be honest with them. You can say that things are not going well. You don't have to keep saying fine. Things are fine. I'm fine. But you can be honest and you can open up with them. We all need people like that in our lives. We need to be human enough to know our own need. And one of the best ways I believe here at the Journey Church that we can help you with that is through small groups. So many of you are involved in a small group environment, and the idea behind that is not that you can learn a new curriculum. It's so that you can do life with other people in a smaller context, so you can get to know them and they can get to know you. So that when the moment of need happens, you're not looking for somebody to come along and help you. You know who your people are. You know who's going to help you. And we all need those kinds of relationships. We'll be relaunching groups again sometime around September. So be on the lookout for that. And if you're not a part of a group, get in one. Be a part of it. Sign up, get involved. I've said it before. It's too late to find a group when you need a group. You've got to have the group before you need them, so you can tap into them when you do. But start building relationships. Start finding yourself as a person that can ask for help when you need it most. All right, here's number 6. Number 6 is this: be assured that there is a purpose and an end. There is a purpose and an end. And listen, I say that as a prophetic word for somebody today. There's a purpose and there's an end. God will turn it around for some sort of purpose for him. Whatever it is you're going through. And listen, there will be an end. There will come a day when there's no more crying, when there's no more suffering, when there's no more insurance, there's no more tax bills, when there's no more IRS calling you, there's no more of that. There will come an end someday for you. Praise God. There is an end. There is a purpose to your bad day. I'm not saying God has caused it to happen, but I am saying that God can use it for his glory, for his purpose. So there's purpose in our bad days. They're not without potential for something good. Jesus, he says this next. It's a very simple phrase. He says, "It is finished." It is finished. In that moment, right there in time, Jesus says, I've conquered it. I've overcome it. It has ended. I've conquered the cross. I've conquered the grave. It is finished, not for him, but for us. For you and for me, he went to the cross to say, it is finished. So that he can put purpose in our bad days. So that we can have hope when it seems like our circumstances are hopeless. And because of what he did on the cross, it gives us a future where all of the pain of this world will someday come to an end. It will be over. So listen, don't give up. Don't do it. Stay the course. There's purpose and there's an end. I love 2 Corinthians 4. It says, therefore, don't lose heart. Don't give up. Though outwardly we are wasting away, yet inwardly we are being renewed day by day. How are we being renewed? Well, it continues. It says, for our light and momentary troubles, they are achieving for us an eternal glory that far outweighs anything we're going through here. There's hope and there's promise there. It's about to be over in Jesus' name. I don't know when, I don't know how, but it is going to come to an end. Praise God. Praise God. Somebody receive that encouragement today. Here's the last one. I want to invite the worship team to go ahead and come back up. This is the seventh thing that we see from Jesus as an example. Finally, surrender. Surrender your day to God and let it go. Surrender your day to God and let it go. Luke 23, verse 46, Father, into your hands I commit my spirit. Everybody look up here for just a second. Sometimes you just need to let it go. Sometimes you just need to come to the end of yourself and you need to say, I cannot do this on my own. You need to surrender. Surrender whatever it is you're going through to God. You've tried 1 through 6 and now you're still in the middle of it and you need to surrender it to God. Because some of you have been trying to do it on your own for far too long. You've been trying to figure it out for far too long. And I bet you found you just can't do it. You cannot do it. And you need to give it to God. And I want to encourage you as you consider everything I've said today, that you need to surrender. Surrender today. If you're going through difficulty, if you're going through the stuff of life, you need to surrender. And so I want to invite everybody across the room, kids, adults, everybody, place your hands out in front of you just like this. There's nothing magical about this. There's nothing special about this. It's just a posture to say, I'm surrendering right now. Open hands towards God, saying, right now in this moment, I surrender all. I give it all to God. I'm not going to hold on to anything. I'm going to surrender it. And with your hands out in front of you like this, I just want to invite you to bow your heads and close your eyes. And I just want you to think with open hands, surrendering to God. Where are you at today with this? Are you in the middle of your bad day? Is your bad day coming? Have you been reliving it over and over and over again? Are you ready to give up? Surrender. Surrender to God. Give it to Jesus and let Him take it on for you. Stop carrying it yourself. Surrender your marriage. Surrender your job. Surrender your kids. Surrender your school. Surrender your finances. If you can't do it one more day, surrender it to Jesus right now. Give it to Him. With every head bowed and every eye closed,